Oh my goodness, Kate Snow. This is a
Hello.
dream come true.
Stop. Usually I ask you the questions on NBC News Daily, Kelly.
Well, and let me just back up a little bit. Here I have Kate Snow, anchor and correspondent for NBC News. And I should probably add singer in that as
Okay,
well. Because that's your side gig that I think you do
true.
for fun. But at any rate, Kate, I have admired your work and was just in awe watching you over the last decade or so, maybe a dozen years you've been with NBC News.
15.
15. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Where
Yeah, they just sent me a little cube with a 15 on it.
Congratulations. Um,
Thank you.
but you were the one person in media that was changing the conversation about mental health, was destigmatizing and helping people feel less shameful and telling really true stories.
Oh, that's
And
very kind.
as a professional in the field, I couldn't have been more proud of the work that you were doing and giving the real facts and educating people. And so,
Thank you.
fast forward and then being able to work with you as a contributor on NBC News Daily was just a dream come true. So here
Oh,
I am. Thank you for saying yes, for being on the podcast.
oh, are you kidding? Of course, I would do anything for you, Kelly. Thank you for saying everything you just said. It's funny. I don't, when you're living it, you don't really see it that way.
Yeah.
I just started reporting on mental health a lot, and it just became kind of, I don't know, like it's a passion of mine. It's something I think that doesn't have enough light shined on it.
Mhm.
And so trying to shine some light.
Well, and how did that happen? Were these
Yeah.
stories that you pitched or people came to you? Because I pitch so many stories and I find that
Yeah.
they are oftentimes not picked up. And so you have a lot more leverage than I do. But
Well, yes and no. Yes and no. That's a good question. I think I've tried to track this back in my head, and I guess I could like go back through my entire, catalog of things that I've done one day and look back. But I I came to NBC in 2010. I had come from a job where I was doing more politics, actually. I was like a lot of Washington kind of stories. Before that, I'd been at ABC before I was at before I was at my current role at NBC. And anyway, just to say that I had done like Capitol Hill and I covered the White House for a little while. And when I got to NBC, a few years in, I had the opportunity to do a magazine program that was like longer format and really dig in on some stories and do things that were 10 minutes long instead of a minute long on television. And I think that was the beginning of where I started to say, where do I want to make my mark? Like, what do I want to specialize in? Because now I'm not in DC, I'm not covering politics. It didn't really make sense in the role that I had at NBC to keep doing that. So I started focusing on the things that I care about, right? And started thinking like, I want to report on things that aren't getting enough attention, things like mental health, but also like substance use. I did a series of stories about heroin back when that was just becoming, it hadn't really even been reported on yet.
Mhm.
That we ended up winning some awards for that series because it was so new and different at the time. Now everybody understands the progression this country went through, unfortunately, you know, with pills and then leading a lot of people to heroin. And I continue to report on that sort of thing too. But the mental health was a piece of sort of, I would say, like a greater group of subjects I care about, which I still do, which is the way people are treated, right? Stories about Me Too kind of stories, stories about, I just did one today that was about abuse in a church setting, sexual abuse. I do a lot of work still on treatment of children and things like that. But a lot of my stories, you're right, that a lot of my stories have to do with mental health. In 2010, we lost my father-in-law
Mhm.
to suicide, and that's my husband's father. And it became really personal for me at that point. Like I started thinking about mental health in a different way, depression in a different way,
Mhm.
and I don't know, I just really wanted to continue reporting. on that.
And that was something that I saw that interview when you did share about
Mm.
your own personal experience on the Today Show
Yeah.
with the
That was actually years later that I shared.
sure. And just seeing that, I think with the timing of that was like 8 years or something after he had died, and you got very choked up, and just the intensity of that, and knowing what somebody has gone through, the family members who have survived, having worked with family survivors of people who have attempted suicide or who have died by suicide, that pain never goes away.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's still with me right now as I'm talking about it. And obviously for my husband,
Yeah.
it's even deeper. It's his father. But we all loved John, and we all did not understand the depth of what he was going through. The depression that he had really had been, I know now, had been cyclical in his life, and he had had bouts before at moments of transition, and he had just retired. He was in his 60s.
Hmm.
And we all knew something was wrong, and we were aware that he was being treated for depression, but frankly, it was his general practitioner. He wasn't even getting specialized help. And again, we as a family, I would think we would all say we didn't quite understand the depth and how much he was hurting, how
Hmm.
much pain he was in.
Sure.
And it happened incredibly suddenly, unexpected for us.
Hmm.
We were having a Christmas party at our house, and the phone rings, and it's like a half an hour before all the guests are going to show up for Christmas party, just before Christmas. I think it was 5 days or 7 days before, I can't remember.
Hmm.
Yeah, and even I say that now, Kelly, and you can see my face. I start to like it starts to come back, all of it. Just the PTSD, I guess, of that moment.
Takes you right
Um,
back.
And it changed all of our lives. He was a joyous, wonderful, like giving person who knew everybody's name at the Ace Hardware in Palatine, Illinois. He
Not
loved
far from
people.
where I'm at in
You know where
Chicago.
I'm talking about. And he was a guidance counselor at Fremd High School. Like he gave his whole life, he was giving to other people. He would come to our house in New York and do chores and like fix things. He was so good at house repairs. And now I think he was kind of covering up and not, masking maybe what was really going on. But that did change me in a way, again, wanting me to do more reporting in that area. I wouldn't say it's the only reason, but it definitely played into me wanting to talk about this stuff out loud. The only reason I waited personally to talk was
Sure.
that my husband has four siblings, and most of us had kids at that point, and they were little
Hmm.
when John died, and we didn't want them to hear Auntie Kate talking about it on the news before they really knew what had happened or understood or processed at the right age. So we waited until the kids were a bit older before we said anything publicly, because I have this platform. I can be on the Today Show,
Hmm.
and I can say that it's okay to talk about suicide. So I do. I say that all the time when I give speeches or I talk to people. Like it's all right to talk about this.
Hmm. Well, you are making such a difference, and not only on your platform as a reporter and a journalist, but also I know that you speak about it at different fundraisers. And my neighbor worked with you at the Kennedy Forum, and
Yes.
the purpose of me launching this podcast is to be able to dig deeper with media figures who are using their platform to continue to educate and talk about things that are uncomfortable for some people to talk about, and to normalize that. And
Yeah.
the parallel also is just where you are in the country today, and what you and me and all of us, how do you take care of your own mental health?
Oh, yeah. That one I can answer. And I've written a little bit about this and talked about it. I see a therapist. Her name is Christine. She's amazing. I've been seeing her, gosh, Kelly, I don't know, years. I don't even know when I started. It
But
must have
you've
been
been
like,
in long-term therapy.
I've been in long-term therapy. I got to be honest, some years I've needed it more, and I've spent more time with her. At other times, I felt like I could, dial back a little bit, but I'm still seeing her. I don't, there's not really been a time where I haven't been in touch. Your life is, everybody knows, like life can be really, really challenging at some points and a little less so at other points. But one thing that she's taught me really is to try to, I think when I first started seeing her, I was up and down and up and down. And
Mhm.
my work life is also super stressful, right? Because right now I anchor a show, but in the past I've been a correspondent running all over the place, flying, traveling. And it
Mhm.
can be really, just the news environment is very stressful because there's breaking news all the time. And I used to be very sort of hot, cold, up, down. Everything's great, everything's terrible. And she's helped me to try to find a middle line. Like, I don't know what you guys call that in the field, but to try to find just a little more level setting and sort of things
Mhm.
aren't all terrible and all great,
Sure.
right? Everything um, is not black and white, which is another thing that I
Yeah.
kind of learned in DBT
Yes.
therapy,
Yes. I was just gonna say you've learned to
dialectical
kind of be in
behavioral
the
therapy.
middle, in the gray
Yeah.
area.
Yeah, in the gray. You can live in the gray.
Yeah.
That's it.
Oh my gosh. And I adore your husband, Chris, too. I got to know him intimately through the news when you were
Yeah.
reporting on when he was in quarantine during the
Oh,
pandemic.
yeah. It's amazing how many people have seen that video. Like, people will stop me and be like, "Oh, yeah, you have the husband who had COVID." And I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, apparently the video kind of went viral. I mean, it was very real at the time. It
Yeah.
was April of 2020,
Hmm.
just after everything, maybe 2 weeks after everything shut down in New York.
Hmm.
My husband was one of the first people in my neighborhood, in my town, to get COVID. Um, it was early, and there weren't a lot of treatments yet, and the advice was you have to completely separate yourself from the family and quarantine yourself. You can't see, touch, be near anyone.
Hmm.
And if your blood oxygen level goes below, I think it was 90, you need to go to the ER right away. And at that time, it was like people were going to the ER and being intubated and put on machines, and it was scary. So
Yeah.
I recorded some video about just what it was like in those moments. I suddenly went from like reporting from my house because it was COVID. I was like
Yeah.
stuck at home
Uh-huh.
and taking care of two kids, and then having to take care of my husband,
Mhm.
and just like bring him food and make sure that he was okay. And it was scary, and he's fine. He's totally fine now. People ask me, like, is he okay? I'm like, yeah, it's been 5 years. He's
But that's
good.
why I think it was so popular because, Kate, that's who you are and that's how you report
Yeah.
authentically and very genuine. And we were watching you deliver him meals to the door, and
Yeah.
like talk to him through the door. And
Yeah.
when you have that,
With a mask on, by the way. Yes.
yeah, most definitely. But when
Oh
you have
man.
that kind of transparency, people can relate and understand
Yeah.
at a different level. And you just humanize what you report.
You want to hear a funny story? The
Do.
day that happened, the day he took the COVID test and it was positive, a crew was supposed to arrive at our house to install. Everybody was home for COVID, so they were going to bring camera gear and install like a studio, a mini studio in our basement. And they couldn't come because Chris had COVID. And
But what
then,
were you recording it from your phone?
yeah, what you saw is on my
Yeah.
phone. Hmm. Yep. And then 3 weeks later, whenever his quarantine was over, he was healthy and he was not contagious anymore. The crew came and put
Uh-huh.
giant gear in my basement, and I then anchored nightly news on Sunday nights, which I did for
Yeah.
a long time
Yes.
from my basement.
Unreal.
Gosh, isn't it weird to think back on
It really
COVID
is. It
now?
really is. And NBC News was a lifeline. I mean, I even remember,
Yeah,
you know, Vicky Wynn reporting about how to wipe everything
I
down, bring
know.
things from
I
the
know.
grocery store. And
Hmm.
yes, it
Yeah,
was.
I mean, that was my job for a good 6 months. I was really focused on nursing homes and the issues they had, all kinds of COVID stories. And
Wow.
mental health, actually. I did
Yes.
quite a few stories about the stress we were all feeling,
Mhm.
about being isolated, about loneliness,
Teens,
all the things.
especially. Yeah,
Yeah.
you did some
Yeah.
stories on teens and
Yep.
mental health as well during that time. So,
as I have even after that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're in this sweet spot. You have this great show on NBC News Now, News Daily, and you cover mental health checks and parenting segments and breaking news, and
Mhm.
you have a daytime spot, which I feel like is
Yeah.
amazing.
It
Um,
is great. It is great. It's called NBC News Daily. And just shameless plug, you can watch us, as you just said, on NBC News Now, which is streaming or like on your app, on your phone, or wherever you stream, whether it's Roku, Hulu, you name it, we're there.
YouTube. I love
But you
watching it
can
on YouTube.
also, for your listeners, you can see us on your local NBC station too.
Right. Right.
Yes, we're
Thank
on
you
the
for
network as well.
plugging that. Yeah. So that is the bulk of the work that you're doing now. And then you kind of jump around to different shows and report
Exactly.
as well.
Yeah, that's exactly right. In fact, I was on Friday, just a few days ago, as we're talking here. I went to Michigan and I recorded a story that will probably first air on nightly news. It's part of a new series that they're doing called The Cost of Denial,
Mm,
which is about insurance and people being denied claims. It doesn't have to be health insurance. There have been a couple about fire insurance, home and homeowners insurance.
mhm.
Most of them have been health stories, and mine is going to be about, as you might guess, about mental health, and a family. I don't want to get too deep into it
Yeah.
before it's aired, but it's about a family from Michigan who wanted to do everything they could for their son in a moment of crisis, and shortly after the crisis got denied all coverage, because it wasn't quote unquote medically necessary.
Oh my gosh.
And so that story will be coming soon. So you're right. I travel a bit. I most and report, but I mostly am anchoring, mostly because my boss, wants us on the anchor desk most days, but I
Sure.
I still do what I can for all the different platforms of NBC.
Can you think about anything that really provoked change on a larger level? Because, when we talk about policy and systems, and you work so hard on these stories, and like you said earlier, they air for a few minutes and then what, right? So,
Yeah.
is there anything that you felt had a really strong impact in terms of maybe a shelf life or more grandiose change at a policy level or
Yeah, I mean, there are some stories, they're not necessarily mental health stories, but there was a series of stories that I did about children, often children who have mental health issues, who end up in youth homes, group youth homes.
Sure.
These exist all over the country, and a lot of them are doing amazing work, I should say. But we focused on a chain of these group homes where we found a pattern of abuse, unfortunately, physical, sexual abuse of some of the very people that, kids who were there to be helped were abused.
By the
It's
staff.
really dark. And some of them, again, some of them really needed mental health treatment. And and then their problems were exacerbated by abuse, right? And then they were facing so much more. So after those stories aired, we did individual stories and then made a documentary, which aired on MSNBC.
Mm,
It's called Children That Pay.
okay.
And I think it's still on our streamer on NBC News Now and Peacock. But anyway, legislative hearings happened after that. There were
Mm,
in on the state level, and I think there was at least one hearing on the national level where there was discussion and policy changes, and things changed in some states because of
mm,
the stories that we told. So that's the kind of impact that you hope that you can have if you're uncovering something that is clearly wrong.
absolutely.
Um, and there have been other examples. It's hard for me to sit here and think of all the
No, no,
examples.
no, no, of
There have
course
been
not.
some other times when I've done stories. I did a lot of stories about some of I mentioned Me Too, but
Mhm.
particularly some of the Cosby accusers.
Sure.
People might remember that I sat in a room with 27 women who all accused Bill Cosby of wrongdoing.
Wow.
And that was years ago. And since then, um, some of those women have gone on to lobby for change in state laws as far as the statute of limitations on filing a claim against someone
Mhm.
used to be really short. You had to get it in like 10 years or
Yep.
that was it.
Yep.
And now a lot of states have changed it so that you can, go back and file something that happened 30 years ago. You can still
Mhm.
file a case or a claim. That's just another one that comes to mind.
Wow. And so do you have any kind of like ritual at the end of the day that you engage in to let go or to, you know?
Yeah, you might have noticed that like there's a joke here at NBC. They go, Kate doesn't do the happy stories. I do. Actually, I do. I do some happy stories. I
Sure.
really, I do. I actually do some what we brand as good news stories,
Yes, yes.
specifically because I want to like balance out all of the negative stories I
Mhm.
do. Um, I have rituals, yes. I definitely during the day, I'm a big fan of like in through the nose, out
Mm.
through the mouth. And in fact, when I'm doing interviews with people, if they've been through a trauma,
Yeah.
I always start with breathing with
Oh,
them just to try to like settle us into the space because
sure.
that's such a hard thing to do in an interview if you've been through trauma. Um, that's a sidebar. But I run. I like to run. I like to exercise. That is a big part of my sort of coping strategies to like get the stuff out. I feel
Yeah.
like if I get some exercise or run, I can release some of it.
Mhm.
I already mentioned therapy. That's a part. I sing, as you mentioned at the top, and whoa, is that a good stress release?
Sure.
Just going to practice doesn't have to be performing, just like even in my house when I'm practicing and getting ready for a gig, which I
Yeah.
do actually in my town, sing out sometimes in parks and bars and places. Nothing big, but that helps so much. I think music is a great, or creativity in general is a great outlet, right?
I couldn't agree more. Yeah. Yeah.
I wish I could tell you that I meditate every day. It doesn't happen. It doesn't.
Practical tools, right? Like I want people to listen and say,
Yeah.
what can I do that I'm not doing
Yeah.
already that makes
Yeah. Yeah. I love like I take long showers in the morning. I like that's
yes,
my time,
a cup of coffee on the train. I
Cup of
mean,
coffee in the morning. I have aromatherapy. Have you seen these things where you can put in the shower and it like it's like a hockey puck looking thing, but it like gives you aromatherapy in the shower.
oh,
It's a
thank you.
steam. It reacts to the steam.
Okay.
Can't think of what they're called, but they're like shower steamers or something like that.
Okay. I
Swear to
will.
God, I have those. They help.
I love it. And so that is something that I try to teach some of my clients too. We're all so busy and trying to, add more things to an already busy
Yes.
schedule can feel really overwhelming. So where
Right.
can we find those small points in our transitions throughout the day,
Yeah.
even if it's 20 seconds, that can make all the
Yeah.
difference to shift the
I'll tell you one more ritual my husband has.
yes, please.
Every night at dinner, he asks what your favorite part of the day was. And we did it all the years our kids were home. Now they're out of the house, but we're still doing it.
I
What's
love
your favorite part of the
that.
day?
I love that.
It's sort of a gratitude thing, right? It sort of
Yeah.
makes you go, oh, yeah, wait, I had a crap day, but my favorite part was that cup of coffee this morning or whatever.
Yeah, I love that. Um, Last question. How do you keep John, your father-in-law's memory alive?
Oh, the first thing I thought of was we just moved recent, like a year ago, and we made sure to move peonies that he had planted. He planted them at his house, but when he passed, my sister-in-law went over to the house and dug up some of the peonies and sent
Yeah.
them to us in a box in the mail. And we planted them at our old house, and now we just transplanted them to our new house, and they're doing great. And I saw them this morning when I left the house, like they're right out front. And I think of him every time I look at the peonies.
That is beautiful.
That's not the only thing, but that, we talk about them a lot. I think that's important, right? When you lose someone, you have to remember them. You have to, it's not shameful. It's not, I mean,
Mhm.
yes, he died by suicide, and that is not his full story, you know? I wish
Absolutely.
he hadn't, but
Sure.
I'm not ashamed that that happened. And I'm glad that I can, again, use my voice to sort of maybe make other people understand that they don't need to be ashamed either.
Right. And that's a helpful bit as well, because I think oftentimes people are so afraid to ask how family members are doing or to bring the person up. I don't want to upset them, I don't,
Right.
and it makes people feel so much more comfortable when we can acknowledge the person who has passed and think about some of the memories and the celebration of life while they were here.
Yeah. Shortly after he passed, we went to a lake house all together, and all the kids released balloons at the same time. And that was a beautiful way for the kids
Mm,
to, just they have that memory. They still remember it.
yeah. And do any of the
So good.
grandkids ask questions?
Oh yeah, I mean, now most of them are, well, the youngest is in middle school at this point, and actually she wasn't even alive when that happened.
Mm,
So they do ask questions. They do. My own kids asked a lot of questions. My older son, Zach, oh my gosh, he had so many. He's just an inquisitive kid, and he had a lot of questions that we really struggled with. We consulted with a child psychologist at
mhm,
that point to kind of my
mhm.
husband and I to try to figure out what we should say and
Yeah.
not say. I would advise anyone going through it if you can,
Mhm.
even if you have someone just in your life who happens to be a therapist or social worker or something, maybe you could ask them or look online. I know there's a lot of great resources for
Mhm.
how to talk to kids about it.
Yeah, and it opens up the conversation in
Yep.
families too, to talk
Yeah.
about mental health.
Yeah. We wanted to be transparent enough and say,
Mhm.
age appropriately and not hide.
Yeah. Well, Kate, it has been so wonderful getting up close and personal with you and having more than 3 or 4 minutes
I know.
with
I know.
and
Usually
running out.
when you're on our show and we do those segments you talked about, like mental health check and modern parenting,
Yeah.
you come on and offer great wisdom, but it's like in 4 minutes
Yeah.
and then it's on. Yeah,
But
this has been
again,
wonderful.
yeah, to have snapshots of it is just, I love the way the landscape of mental health has changed. And I
Me
think
too.
it
Me
has
too.
changed because of change makers that are passionate about change and have a mission to do different and to do better and to continue to advocate. So thank you so much for saying yes.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And I'll have all of the links in the show notes to find Kate on
Oh,
NBC
great.
News
Thank
Now,
you.
NBC News Daily, and any upcoming stories that you have. I will also put the handle to your Instagram. So thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Now I'm TV Kate Snow on Insta, Facebook, Twitter, X, Threads, TikTok.
So many. You can
All the things.
type in Kate Snow on Chat GPT, and you will find all the things.
No, that'll tell you falsehoods about me.
Oh no, that's
Oh
for
yeah, believe me,
another
we tried.
conversation.
My husband and I tested it, and it was like saying that I interviewed people I never interviewed,
No
or I
way.
was places I
Okay.
never was.
Oh my gosh. So don't do that.
Don't do that.
Okay. Thank you.